Hitler's secret Jurassic Park, the shocking Nazi plan to resurrect prehistoric monsters. Chapter 1. The shocking Nazi secret Hitler's real-life Jurassic Park plan. Hidden deep within Europe's ancient forests lies one of history's most bizarre and terrifying secrets. A Nazi experiment so shocking that its full truth is only now being revealed. The Third Reich harbored an unbelievable ambition to turn back time itself and resurrect prehistoric monsters that hadn't walked the earth for over 9,000 years. Under Hitler's twisted vision, SS scientists embarked on a chilling plan to recreate extinct beasts, dreaming of a future where the Nazi super race would hunt these resurrected creatures in the dark primeval forests of conquered Europe. This wasn't science fiction, it was a real master plan, and they were prepared to kill anyone who stood in their way. This horrifying project marked the deadly beginning of what would become the final solution. In July 1941, the notorious Order Police Battalion 322 descended upon the remote Białowieża forest in eastern Poland, capturing and deporting thousands of innocent people. Those who dared resist faced immediate execution. The battalion's brutal atrocities were coldly documented in war diaries that survive to this day. Chilling records of villages burned to ash, families torn from their homes, and merciless massacres. In just 7 terrifying days between July 25 and August 1, 1941, 34 entire villages were wiped off the map and over 7,000 people expelled from their ancestral homes. Chapter 2. Hermann Göring's Dark Forest Vision, the Master Hunter's Twisted Dream. This ruthless operation wasn't random violence, it was part of a larger, more sinister Nazi project. The war diary reveals a bone-chilling order. The entire population of this primeval forest had to be relocated. This ancient woodland was destined to become a private nature reserve for Reichsmarshal Hermann Göring, Hitler's most powerful deputy and the Third Reich's master of the hunt. To Göring and other Nazi leaders, this wasn't just valuable territory, it was sacred ground, the last untouched sanctuary of Europe's rarest and most magnificent wild beasts. Within days of invading the Soviet Union, Göring had already staked his claim on the forest for his own dark purposes. Among the creatures that roamed these mystical woods were the elusive Eurasian lynx, towering European moose, and the last surviving herds of European bison. Mighty beasts the Germans reverently called Weisend. To the Nazis, these weren't ordinary animals. They believed their Aryan ancestors had once hunted these exact creatures in the misty primeval forests where, according to their twisted ideology, the pure Germanic bloodline was first forged. Chapter 3. The Ancient Germanic Forest Myth, from Roman times to Nazi ideology. For centuries, the untamed wilderness had held a powerful grip on the German imagination. Even during Roman times, the historian Tacitus described the Germans as the people of the forest, an untainted pure race, distinct and unmixed with others. These were fierce, blue-eyed, copper-haired warriors of imposing stature, forever bound to their sacred woodlands. These ancient forests of Germania, celebrated in myth and legend, had been central to German identity for generations, woven into childhood tales of heroes like Siegfried, the legendary beast slayer. This primal connection to the wild wasn't mere nostalgia, it was a vital thread in the twisted ideology of the Third Reich. The Nazi belief that the German people, shaped by forests and their trials, possessed unique mental and physical qualities superior to all others, fed directly into their horrific racial myths. After Hitler himself, Hermann Göring stood as the second most powerful man in Nazi Germany. As Reichsmarshal and master of the hunt, he indulged his dangerous obsession with nature and big game hunting. Chapter 4. Dr. Lutz Heck, the mad scientist behind the monster plan. Standing beside Göring in those pre-war planning photographs was a man with the power to make these dark fantasies a terrifying reality. Drive Lutz Heck, a renowned zoologist and dedicated SS member. Even before the Nazis seized power, Heck and his brother Heinz, directors of Berlin and Munich's prestigious zoos, had embarked on an audacious mission to bring back to life the extinct wild beasts of Europe's ancient forests. Their plan was revolutionary and disturbing. Use selective breeding to recreate animals that hadn't roamed the earth in centuries. A twisted form of de-extinction that would make Jurassic Park look tame. Backed by unlimited Nazi resources and driven by racial ideology, the Heck brothers believed they could reverse time itself and resurrect the legendary beasts of ancient Germanic folklore. The Heck family had long been a dynasty of zookeepers, with Ludwig Heck standing as one of Germany's most respected wildlife conservationists. As director of the famous Berlin Zoo, Ludwig had dedicated his career to protecting animals, particularly the revered European bison, but his sons were about to take this legacy in a far darker direction. Chapter 5: The Aurochs, Resurrecting Hitler's Ultimate Beast. Inspired by the blood-soaked legends of their childhood, the Heck brothers became obsessed with ancient Germanic warrior tales, none more so than the saga of Siegfried, the mythical beast slayer. For Lutz Heck, these stories ignited a lifelong fascination with two of Europe's most legendary creatures, the mighty Wisent and the fearsome Aurochs, the wild ancient ancestor of modern cattle. In his memoirs, Lutz recalled how in his youth he was captivated by these towering beasts, the most powerful symbols of primeval German nature. While a few Wisent still survived in the Bialowice forest, the Aurochs had vanished centuries earlier, leaving behind only myths and scattered bones. Even Julius Caesar had written about these magnificent beasts, describing them as nearly the size of elephants, creatures of immense strength and ferocity that feared neither man nor beast. To the Heck brothers, reviving these lost creatures wasn't just scientific pursuit, it was a quest to reclaim a lost piece of Germanic identity. Modern bioarchaeologists have uncovered ancient Aurochs remains in the Middle East, revealing skulls from the Bronze Age and nearly complete skeletons of these colossal beasts. These ancient bones, enormous ribs, massive jaws, sturdy hips, and remarkably large shoulder blades, show that male aurochs stood as tall as 160 to 180 centimeters at the shoulder, with females around 150 centimeters. Chapter 6: The Twisted Science of Backbreeding, Creating Monsters from Myths. The Heck brothers believed that deep within modern cattle's genetic code lay dormant blueprints of their wild ancestors, ancient DNA that could be awakened through selective breeding. Their plan was staggering: turn back time by nearly 9,000 years to an age before humans first tamed the aurochs. The brothers scoured ancient writings, studied cave paintings in Spanish mountain caverns, and examined skeletons from prehistoric burial sites. They meticulously cataloged descriptions of the auroch's size, coloring, horn structure, and temperament, discovering that traits of the long-lost aurochs were scattered among different breeds of tame cattle across Europe. Lutz Heck's goal was chillingly clear: unite in a single animal all those characteristics of the wild aurochs that are now found scattered between various breeds of domestic cattle. By selectively breeding cattle that carried these ancient traits, they believed they could strip away domestication's softness and reawaken the prehistoric beast. Their method, known as backbreeding, was cutting-edge genetics for its time. Lutz journeyed to Corsica's rugged hills, discovering powerful stocky bulls. In southern France's Camargue wetlands, he found muscular, hardy cattle. From Seville, he imported fierce Spanish fighting bulls bred for combat and boasting the unpredictable aggression he desperately sought. Chapter 7: Nazi Ideology Meets Mad Science When Breeding Became Genocide. This obsessive quest for a perfect breed eerily echoed the racial ideologies of the Nazi Party. The regime enforced brutal laws defining racial purity and segregation, even co-opting animal breeding terminology, referring to children of mixed parentage as crossbreeds. For Lutz Heck, the Nazi rise wasn't a hindrance, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. His aurochs breeding program suddenly gained powerful allies. Just months after the Nazis seized power, Heck officially joined the notorious SS and cultivated a personal friendship with Hermann Göring. In Heck's breeding program, just like in the broader Nazi worldview, there was no room for weakness. Any offspring born feeble or lacking aggression were ruthlessly culled from the bloodline. This principle didn't just apply to animals, it mirrored the same merciless policy Nazism imposed on human lives. The 1936 Berlin Olympics showcased Hitler's vision of Aryan physique, but behind the scenes, the so-called losers, the racially impure, disabled, and mentally unfit, were systematically removed from society. Many were quietly killed following Hitler's chilling words from Mein Kampf: "Whoever is not physically and spiritually healthy and worthy shall not pass on his suffering to his children." Chapter 8: The Warsaw Zoo Raid, Stealing Animals for the Master Race. When Nazi forces conquered Poland, Lutz Heck gained free rein to loot zoos across occupied territories, plundering rare animals for his twisted breeding experiments. In Warsaw, zoo director Jan Zabinski and his wife Antonina lived in one of the few buildings left standing after the bombing. Dr. Lutz Heck, now a high-ranking SS officer, personally visited the Warsaw Zoo with chilling instructions. The zoo was marked for liquidation. Valuable animals would be seized for German zoos while the rest faced slaughter. Across occupied Europe, Nazi officials plundered zoo collections as war trophies for the Reich. Antonina Zabinska later wrote of her heartbreak watching their beloved animals taken for Heck's experiments or condemned to death. But while they couldn't stop Heck from stealing their animals, the Zabinskis defied Nazi authority in a far more dangerous way, hiding Jewish families in their home's basement right beneath the SS officers' feet. When Heck visited, he had no idea desperate refugees were concealed below the floorboards. Antonina, a gifted pianist, devised a coded warning system. Whenever she played a particular piece, it silently warned those in hiding that danger was near. Chapter 9, Operation Barbarossa, The Forest of Death begins. On June 22, 1941, the Nazi war machine launched its colossal invasion of the Soviet Union. Stalin, caught completely off guard, lost vast territories within days. Among the spoils was the ancient Białowieża forest, a pristine wilderness straddling eastern Poland's border. For Nazi planners, these weren't just military victories, but blank canvases for German colonization and ecological conquest. Dr. Lutz Heck argued that eastern landscapes had deteriorated because of wrong inhabitants. His plan wasn't just to replace people but to overwrite native ecology, replanting German forests and releasing resurrected prehistoric beasts. Although Białowieża lay 800 kilometers from Berlin, it was now annexed to German territory. This was the Nazis' long-awaited opportunity to recreate ancient Germania. Białowieża would become the heart of a sprawling wilderness reserve, connected to other Polish forests, forming a colossal German primeval hunting ground. But this new Germania wasn't meant to be shared. As the plan unfolded, it became clear there would be no place for Poles, Jews, or other undesirables. It would be a pure German landscape, populated by Aryan settlers and prowled by fierce engineered beasts. Chapter 10, Heinrich Himmler's Death Machine, the SS Forest Clearance Operation. Heinrich Himmler, ruthless head of the SS and architect of the Holocaust, shared Göring's vision of transforming Białowieża into an enormous wildlife reserve. Not only did the SS approve this plan, they actively facilitated it by dispatching death squads to begin ethnic cleansing operations. Within days of invading the Soviet Union, SS units commanded by one of Göring's trusted hunters began driving out the local population. At last, Göring's long-standing plans were underway. A Polish forest would be emptied and reborn as a German Jurassic Park. Over 3 years, more than 20,000 people were forcibly expelled from the region. According to Nazi war diaries, these clearing operations were accompanied by some of the Holocaust's earliest mass executions. Białowieża became a testing ground for extermination policies, one of the first places where the final solution's various steps were carried out systematically. All that remains of Jewish communities who had lived in these woodlands since the 18th century are their cemeteries. Within weeks of Nazi occupation, these communities were annihilated, their people either executed on the spot or deported to death camps. Chapter 11, The Release of the Monsters, Heck's creatures enter the death forest. Dr. Lutz Heck's sinister shadow soon fell upon the cursed Białowieża forest. His re-engineered creatures, ancestral beasts conjured through dark science, were transferred from Göring's personal hunting reserve to their ultimate destination, the now ethnically cleansed Białowieża forest. After nearly 15 years of disturbing breeding experiments, this was Heck's moment of triumph. Seemingly oblivious to the systematic slaughter unfolding around him, Heck wrote coldly in his memoirs. It was a long and laborious process, which ultimately produced this fine, healthy stock of aurochs. Every year now, the cows bring new calves into the world. Under his direction, Białowieża transformed into a vast open-air wildlife laboratory, a primordial fragment of the dreamed new Germania. Here, among ancient trees, Heck unleashed imposing bears, genetically manipulated bison, and conducted experiments with wild tarpon horses as part of his twisted breeding program. Meanwhile, Göring replaced existing police battalions with special Luftwaffe units tasked with hunting escaped Jews and annihilating partisans. Their war diaries recorded every macabre activity with surgical precision that still chills readers today. Chapter 12, The Hunting Diaries of Horror, documenting murder in the monster forest. A shredded page from those horror diaries, dated March 30, 1943, drags us into the black heart of death operations within Białowieża forest. Corporal Rudolf Trebus describes with chilling normality his hunting patrol in the forest's western section. They spotted a small group of partisans, including a woman, gathered around a meager fire. Just 60 meters away, Trebus's patrol crept closer before the corporal split his forces for a coordinated attack. The assault was sudden and brutal. 5 partisans fell under a hail of bullets, their lives extinguished instantly. If the victims were Jews, their bodies were left where they fell, abandoned like animal carcasses without burial or mercy. The horrifying chronicles speak of 139 Jews eliminated during these wild hunting missions, individuals whose names were sometimes noted with bureaucratic coldness as they were slaughtered. After days spent sowing death and terror, German troops received generous beer rations for cozy get-togethers. Evenings of macabre camaraderie celebrating death. Evidence suggests alcohol played a crucial role in suppressing any remaining humanity, acting as a dark lubricant for the extermination machine. Chapter 13. The Fall of the Monster Makers, Justice Delayed but Not Denied. In May 1945, Hermann Göring was captured by American forces in Bavaria. Yet this master of cruelty would cheat the hangman's noose, committing suicide during the Nuremberg war crimes trials. The full truth of systematic massacres in Białowieża forest, secrets Göring carried to his grave, remained largely undiscovered until long after his death. Dr. Lutz Heck faced intense investigation for his role as a high-ranking Nazi official. However, in a chilling twist reflecting post-war justice's murky waters, he was subsequently exonerated. Deemed merely a follower rather than a war criminal, Heck walked free. Both Lutz and his brother Heinz continued their careers as respected zoologists, their shadowy Nazi associations seemingly fading into the background until their deaths in the early 1980s, taking their secrets to the grave. Chapter 14. The Living Legacy, What Happened to Hitler's Monsters. The Białowieża forest, where Göring and Heck plotted their twisted Aryan vision, still flourishes today as a nature reserve shared between Poland and Belarus. It remains a crucial sanctuary for rare European wildlife, including a thriving population of European bison, living echoes of a wilder past. What of the infamous Heck cattle, controversial descendants of the Nazi breeding program? They too still thrive scattered across European reserves as a living legacy of a dark dream. Keen observers note these Heck cattle bear a striking resemblance to historical descriptions of legendary aurochs, complete with characteristic pale eel stripes down their spines and formidable horns. These engineered animals can appear quite fierce, their gaze unnervingly direct, exuding primal energy that makes even the bravest hesitant to approach despite their superficial calmness. Chapter 15. The Scientific Truth Hitler's Cattle Exposed. Despite their carefully engineered physical similarity to extinct ancestors, modern scientists armed with genetic analysis assert a stark truth. These Heck cattle are genetically no closer to true aurochs than any other domestic cattle breed. The uncomfortable reality is that animals the Heck brothers so painstakingly bred are probably not similar to ancient beasts in any meaningful genetic way. They poured efforts into manipulating external packaging, sculpting a convincing facade that mirrored cave paintings and folkloric descriptions. But what lay inside the box was far from the genuine article. To navigate the labyrinthine maze of descent, connecting modern cattle with ancient aurochs is practically impossible. Many enthusiasts have fooled themselves by presenting animals that merely look like what they imagine aurochs to have been. These false aurochs are now specifically called Heck cattle to distinguish them from original, truly wild aurochs of European legend. Some call them accusingly Hitler's cows due to their Nazi breeding program origins. Chapter 16. From Dark Past to Bright Future, The Real Resurrection Coming. To some, the fact that Heck cattle remain direct products of a notorious Nazi breeding program, inextricably linked to racial purity ideology and brutal domination, justifies calling them Hitler's cows, yet one must consider the animals themselves. These creatures harbor no political views. They are simply cattle of a different, controversially engineered kind. Perhaps they should be allowed to exist free from the heavy shadows of their human creators' twisted ambitions. These false aurochs were bred as a result of the same dangerous romantic myths and pseudoscientific theories that fueled Nazi obsessions with racial purity. Both grandiose projects, recreating a mythical beast and forging a biologically pure master race, were ultimately catastrophic failures. That dark era when biology and politics became toxically intertwined reveals a profound mistake that has polluted both human genetics study and animal breeding practices. Thankfully, that benighted era is behind us. The preserved remains of truly ancient beasts are now yielding precious DNA. This ancient genetic material holds the tantalizing possibility that one day, scientists wielding cloning technology could enable us to witness a real, genetically authentic aurochs walk the earth once more. Perhaps then, as Julius Caesar once warned his legions, 7-foot-tall bulls of immense power and untamed spirit may indeed roam Europe's forests again, sparing neither man nor wild beast, a true, terrifying, and majestic echo from a lost world, a world before the dark experiments and horrors of the WWII forest. Conclusion: the ultimate warning from history's darkest chapter. This shocking true story of Hitler's Jurassic monsters serves as the ultimate warning about what happens when science becomes contaminated by twisted ideology. The Heck brothers' quest to resurrect prehistoric beasts wasn't just about animals, it was part of the same worldview that led to the Holocaust. The forests of WWII still whisper with the memories of those who died so that Nazi fantasies could play out among the trees. Their sacrifice reminds us that the pursuit of genetic purity, whether in animals or humans, leads only to darkness and death. Today, as genetic technology advances at breathtaking speed, we must remember this dark chapter and ensure that science serves all humanity, not the twisted dreams of those who would play God with life itself. The real monsters of this story weren't the resurrected beasts, they were the men who created them.